Victor Hale was dying, and he didn't even know it. The man who'd built an empire on fear and ruthless precision, the crime lord who made grown men sweat with a single glance, was being murdered in his own home. Not with a bullet, not in some dramatic showdown, but slowly, methodically, by the two people he trusted most. And tonight, New Year's Day, hidden in a closet by the woman he'd barely noticed in 5 years, he would watch them celebrate his death. If you want to see how a king falls and fights his way back, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. The penthouse smelled like expensive cologne and old cigar smoke, the kind of scent that announced power before words ever could. Victor Hale stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan stretched below him like a kingdom he'd conquered block by block. 43 floors up, the city looked manageable, containable. Down there, people were problems to solve or pieces to move. Up here, he was untouchable, or so he thought. "Mr. Hale, your tea." Victor didn't turn. He barely registered the voice. Soft, accented, forgettable. The housemaid. What was her name, Laura? Lisa? He'd never bothered to learn it properly. She'd worked for him for 5 years, and he could count on one hand the number of times he'd actually looked at her face. "Leave it," he said, his voice rough. Lately, everything felt rough. His throat burned. His joints ached in ways they shouldn't for a man of 46. His doctor called it stress. Victor called it the price of staying on top. The maid, Lena, that was it, set the porcelain cup down with a soft click. He heard her footsteps retreat, quiet as always. Invisible. That's how he liked his staff. Present when needed, gone when not. Victor checked his Rolex. 11:47 p.m. Alara was late. His wife had been at some charity gala downtown, one of those society events she lived for. Beautiful, poised Alara with her practiced smile and her degree in art history she'd never used. They'd been married for 8 years, and somewhere around year 3, they'd stopped pretending it was about love. It was about image. Partnership. The kind of arrangement people in his world understood. He reached for the tea, then stopped. His hand was shaking. Not stress. Something else. Something that had been building for months. This exhaustion that sank into his bones. This fog that clouded his thoughts when he needed them sharpest. 2 weeks ago, he'd fallen asleep during a meeting with the Russians. Just closed his eyes for a second, and when he opened them, everyone was staring. He'd played it off as jet lag, but Dmitry Volkov had smiled in a way that said he'd noticed the weakness. In Victor's world, weakness was blood in the water. The elevator chimed. Victor turned as the doors slid open, revealing Alara in a silver dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. She was beautiful in that cold, sculptural way, all sharp cheekbones and calculated elegance. But tonight, something was different. She was smiling, actually smiling, not the polite mask she usually wore. "You're still up," she said, crossing the marble floor in heels that clicked like a countdown. "Couldn't sleep." He studied her face. "Good event?" Raised $500,000 for the children's hospital. She poured herself a drink from the bar, bourbon neat. "Your brother was there." Victor's jaw tightened. Damon. His younger brother by 4 years, blessed with their mother's charm and their father's ambition, but none of the steel needed to actually hold power. Damon worked in the legitimate side of the family business, real estate development, city contracts, the clean money that washed the dirty. He was good at it, too good lately. Victor had noticed the way people looked at Damon, like maybe he was the future and Victor was becoming the past. What did he want? To talk about the Atlantic Yards project. He thinks... Alara paused, tilting her head. "Are you feeling all right? You look pale." "I'm fine." "You don't look fine. You look..." She set down her glass and moved closer, and for a moment something flickered in her eyes. Concern? No. Something else, something that made Victor's instincts prickle. "You should rest. Go to bed." I said I'm fine. The sharpness in his voice would have made most people step back. Alara just smiled that strange smile again and kissed his cheek. Her lips were cold. "Whatever you say, darling." She disappeared down the hallway to her bedroom. They'd had separate rooms for years, and Victor was alone again with the sleeping city and the burning in his gut. He should have known then. Should have trusted the instinct that had kept him alive through 2 decades of deals and betrayals. But exhaustion was making him sloppy, and the fog in his head was getting thicker. Victor forced himself to his study. A wood-paneled room lined with first editions he'd never read, and awards for civic contributions he'd never earned. The legitimate face of an illegitimate empire. He pulled up the security feeds on his computer, 12 cameras covering every entrance, every hallway, every room except the bedrooms and bathrooms. Old habit. You didn't build what he'd built without watching your back. Everything looked normal. The night doorman at his post, the service entrance locked, the private elevator secured, his world controlled and contained. Except he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Victor's phone buzzed. Marcus Chen, his head of security. "Boss, we got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The shipment from Miami. Feds grabbed it at the port. Whole thing. $3 million in product, gone." Victor's blood went cold. $3 million. That wasn't just money. That was credibility. In his business, you were only as strong as your last success. Losing a shipment that size made you look weak. Made people wonder if you still had control. How? Don't know yet. They knew exactly which container, exactly when it would arrive. Someone talked. A mole. In his organization. Victor's mind spun through possibilities, but the fog was there, slowing him down. Names and faces blurred together. "Find out who. I want them by morning." "You got it? You okay? You sound—" "I'm fine." He hung up before Marcus could finish. He wasn't fine. He was dying. Victor just didn't know it yet. But the next morning, Victor woke to sunlight stabbing through gaps in the curtains and the taste of copper in his mouth. His sheets were soaked with sweat. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Then reality assembled itself piece by piece. His bedroom, his penthouse, his life slowly sliding out of control. He checked his phone. 1:37 p.m. He'd slept through the entire morning. Impossible. He never slept past 6. 17 missed calls, 6 from Marcus, 4 from his lawyer, 3 from Damon, the rest from associates who probably smelled blood and wanted to see if the king was really falling. Victor forced himself upright. The room tilted, then steadied. He made it to the bathroom and stared at the stranger in the mirror. Gaunt face, gray skin, eyes that looked sunken and old. When had this happened? How had he not noticed? His phone rang. "Damon." "Where have you been?" his brother asked. No greeting, just accusation wrapped in concern. "I've been calling all morning." "Sleeping." "You don't sleep till 1 in the afternoon. Are you sick?" There it was again. That edge in his voice, like he was waiting for something. Like this was expected. "What do you want, Damon?" "We need to talk. The board is asking questions about the Miami situation. People are nervous." "Handle it." "I can't just handle it. You're the one they look to. But if you're not well, I'll be at the office in an hour." Victor hung up and immediately regretted it. Moving that fast made his head spin. He gripped the marble countertop until the dizziness passed, then forced himself through the motions of getting ready. Shower, suit, the armor of respectability. The maid was in the kitchen when he emerged. Lena. She was washing dishes, her back to him, dark hair pulled into a neat bun. Small woman. Maybe 30. She'd been practically invisible for 5 years, and now Victor found himself actually looking at her. "Mr. Hale." She turned, and her face went carefully blank. "I didn't know you were awake. Can I make you breakfast?" "Coffee, black." She moved with quiet efficiency, and Victor found himself watching the way her hands trembled slightly as she poured. Fear? No, something else. When she brought him the cup, their eyes met for just a second, and Victor saw something there that jarred him. Pity. "Is there anything else?" she asked. No. But as she turned to leave, Victor's vision blurred. The cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor in an explosion of porcelain and dark liquid. He grabbed for the counter, but his legs weren't working right, and suddenly he was falling, the floor rushing up to meet him. Hands caught him. Small, but surprisingly strong. Lena lowered him into a chair, her face close to his, and Victor realized she was saying something, words in English and Spanish mixing together. "Need to sit. Just breathe. Mr. Hale, can you hear me?" "I'm fine," he managed, but they both knew it was a lie. She disappeared and returned with water and a wet cloth, pressed it to his forehead. Her hands were steady now, no trembling. Up close, Victor noticed things he'd never seen before. The scar on her left eyebrow, the way her eyes were two different shades of brown, the set of her jaw that said she'd survived things he couldn't imagine. "You should see a doctor," she said quietly. "I have a doctor." A real doctor, not Dr. Brennan. Victor's eyes snapped to her face. How did she know about Brennan? His personal physician, the one who took care of things that couldn't go through normal channels. The one who'd been telling him for months that nothing was seriously wrong. "I need to go," Victor said, pushing himself up. "Mr. Hale, I'm fine." But he wasn't, and Lena's eyes said she knew it. She helped him to the elevator without another word, and Victor hated that he needed the help. Hated the weakness that was eating through him like acid. The ride down was 43 floors of fluorescent lights and mirrors showing him the truth he didn't want to see. By the time he reached the lobby, Victor had his mask back in place. Steel spine, cold eyes, the version of himself that made people look away. His driver, Paul, was waiting with the town car. If he noticed anything wrong, he was smart enough not to mention it. "Office, sir?" "Yeah." The city slid past outside the tinted windows. January in New York, gray sky, gray buildings, gray crowds moving through their gray lives. Victor had owned pieces of this city for 20 years. Real estate, politicians, cops, judges, a web of power and influence that stretched from the docks to City Hall. And now someone was trying to take it from him. The question was, who? His phone rang again. "Marcus. Tell me you found something." "Yeah, but you're not going to like it. The leak came from inside. Someone in your inner circle tipped the feds." Victor's hand tightened on the phone. "Who?" "Still working on it. But boss, there's something else. I've been going through the books like you asked. There's money missing. A lot of it. Millions. It's been siphoned off over the past 8 months, covered up real good. Someone who knows the system inside and out." 8 months. Right around when Victor had started feeling sick. "Send me everything." "And Marcus? Trust nobody. Not even me? Especially not you." Victor hung up and closed his eyes. The pieces were there, scattered across the board, but his mind couldn't connect them. The fog was too thick. He needed to think, needed to be sharp, but his body was betraying him. When they pulled up to the office, a gleaming tower in Midtown with Hale Enterprises etched in steel, Damon was waiting in the lobby. Younger, taller, better looking in that way that came easy to him. Three-piece suit that fit perfectly. Smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You look like hell," Damon said. "Thanks." "I'm serious, Vic. When's the last time you saw a doctor?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. Look at you." Damon moved closer, and Victor caught a whiff of his cologne. Same brand their father had worn. People are noticing. The board, the partners, everyone. They're starting to wonder if you can still lead. "Is that what you're wondering?" Something flickered across Damon's face. "I'm worried about you. You're my brother." "I said I'm fine." But in the elevator up to the executive floor, Victor had to lean against the wall. 40 floors this time, and each one felt like a descent instead of a climb. Damon watched him with that same expression Lena had worn. Pity mixed with something else. Calculation. The executive suite was all glass and steel, designed to intimidate. Victor's corner office had a view that stretched to New Jersey on clear days. Today, the windows just showed gray sky and the feeling of walls closing in. "The board wants answers about Miami," Damon said, settling into the chair across from Victor's desk like he belonged there. "And about the Denver deal that fell through, and the Seattle warehouse that burned down last month. People are asking questions." "People or you?" "Don't do that. Don't make this adversarial." Damon leaned forward. "I'm trying to help, but you need to let me. You need to let someone take some of the weight. The weight is mine. Not if you're too sick to carry it." There it was, the blade hidden in the concern. Victor studied his brother's face and saw the future Damon was already imagining, himself in this chair, behind this desk, with this view. "I'm not dying, Damon. I didn't say you were, but you're clearly not well. Maybe it's time to think about succession planning, just as a precaution." Succession. The word hung in the air between them like a threat. Get out. Vicka. Get out. Damon stood slowly, smoothing his suit. I'm trying to help. When you're ready to accept that, you know where to find me. The door clicked shut, and Victor was alone with his failing body and his crumbling empire. He pulled up the security files Marcus had sent, page after page of numbers that should have told a story but just looked like chaos. Someone was stealing from him, someone close enough to know where the bodies were buried. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're being poisoned. They're going to kill you. New Year's Eve, they'll celebrate your death. Trust no one. El Victor stared at the screen. Poisoned. Impossible. Paranoid. Except it explained everything. The sickness, the fog, the way his body was shutting down piece by piece. The tea, the food, the supplements Dr. Brennan had prescribed. Who is this? No response. Victor's mind spun through possibilities. Laura? No. Lena. The maid. The invisible woman who'd caught him when he fell. Who'd looked at him with pity and told him to see a real doctor. If she was right, if someone was actually poisoning him, then everyone was suspect. Alara, Damon, Dr. Brennan, Marcus. Everyone who got close enough to slip something into his food, his drink, his medication. And if they were willing to kill him, they wouldn't stop until he was dead. Victor stood on legs that barely held him and looked out at his kingdom. Somewhere in this city was the truth. Somewhere in his own home was the person trying to murder him. And he had no idea how much time he had left to figure it out. His phone buzzed again. Tonight, after they think you're asleep, stay awake. You need to see. L. Awesome. The penthouse was quiet when Victor returned at 9 p.m. Alara was in the living room reading a book she wasn't actually reading. He could tell by the way her eyes didn't move across the page. She was waiting for something. You're home early? She said without looking up. Not feeling great. Think I'll turn in. Now she looked up. Should I call Dr. Brennan? No. Just need rest. He moved past her toward his bedroom, feeling her eyes on his back. In his room, Victor went through the motions of getting ready for bed. Shower, pajamas. But he didn't take the sleeping pills Brennan had prescribed. Didn't drink the chamomile tea that appeared on his nightstand every night, brought by invisible hands. Just climbed into bed and waited. The penthouse settled into nighttime rhythms. Footsteps in distant hallways, the hum of the heating system, the city noise 43 floors below. Victor lay in the dark and tried to stay alert, but exhaustion pulled at him like undertow. He might have dozed, wasn't sure. But suddenly, he was awake, and someone was in his room. Lena. Moving silently in the darkness, a shadow among shadows. She came to his bed and whispered, barely audible, Don't react. Don't speak. They're coming. Trust me. Before Victor could respond, she grabbed his arm and pulled. Years of survival instinct kicked in. He didn't question, just moved, letting her guide him across the room. She opened his closet, massive walk-in, bigger than most people's bedrooms, and pulled him inside. Stay quiet, she breathed. Don't move, no matter what you see. She positioned him behind a rack of suits in a narrow space where the closet bent at an angle. Then she pressed something into his hand. His phone, on silent, camera app already open. Record everything, she whispered, and disappeared. Victor's heart hammered. Through the gap in the closet door, he could see his bedroom. Empty. Dark. Then light spilled in from the hallway and voices drifted closer. Alara's laugh, light and genuine in a way he hadn't heard in years. Should check on him first, she was saying. Why? Damon's voice. You gave him the extra dose. He'll be out for hours. They appeared in the doorway, his wife and his brother silhouetted against the hall light. Alara was still in her evening dress. Damon had loosened his tie. They moved to his bed and Alara leaned over, checking. Dead to the world, she said, and they both laughed. Victor's blood turned to ice. How much longer? Damon asked, settling into the chair by the window, making himself comfortable in Victor's room, in Victor's life. Dr. Brennan says 2 weeks, maybe less. The last test showed significant organ damage. Liver, kidneys. By the time anyone figures out what's wrong, it'll be too late. Alara poured herself a drink from Victor's bar. To be honest, I'm surprised he's lasted this long. The dose we've been giving him should have killed him months ago. He's always been tough to kill. Damon accepted a glass. Remember when Dad tried to cut him out of the business? Victor turned half the organization against him in a week. Well, he can't fight poison, and he certainly can't fight us. They clinked glasses. A toast. To his death. Victor's hand shook as he held up the phone, recording through the gap. Every word, every laugh, every casual discussion of his murder. The board meeting is scheduled for the 15th, Damon said. I'll announce his declining health, recommend myself as interim CEO. By the time he dies, the transition will already be in motion. What about Marcus and the others? Marcus is loyal to power, not to Victor. Once they see who's really in charge, they'll fall in line. Anyone who doesn't, Damon shrugged. Accidents happen. Alara moved closer to the bed. Victor could see her face now in the ambient light from the windows. Beautiful and cold and completely unfamiliar. Had she always looked at him like this, like something to be removed? I almost feel bad, she said, but her tone said otherwise. 8 years of marriage, of pretending. You deserve an Oscar. Damon stood, moved behind her, put his hands on her shoulders. All those years, playing the devoted wife. It wasn't all bad. The money was nice, the penthouse, the lifestyle. She turned in Damon's arms. But this will be better. No more pretending, no more cold bed, just us. They kissed. Not a quick peck, but something deeper, familiar. This wasn't new. Victor's world cracked apart. How long? He thought he'd just mouthed the words, but maybe he said them out loud because Lena's hand appeared from nowhere, covering his mouth. She'd been there the whole time, pressed against the wall beside him, making sure he stayed quiet. Should go, Alara was saying. The maid might still be up. Lena? She's harmless, barely speaks English, doesn't see anything that doesn't concern her. Perfect servant. They had no idea. No idea she'd been listening, watching, collecting evidence. Still, let's be careful, we're so close. 2 weeks, Damon agreed. Then it's all ours, the business, the empire, everything Victor built. Yeah, everything our father built, Alara corrected. Victor just inherited it. You're the one who actually earned it. More poisoned words, more lies he'd believed for years. They left, switching off the light, and the room fell back into darkness. Victor stood frozen in the closet, watching the empty doorway where his life had just been murdered before his eyes. Lena's hand stayed on his arm, grounding him, keeping him from doing something stupid like running after them, confronting them, getting himself killed for real. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. Until the penthouse went quiet again. Then Lena pulled him out of the closet and whispered, "We need to leave, now, before they check again." "I'm going to kill them." Victor's voice was dead calm. "Both of them. You're going to survive first, then we worry about revenge." She was already moving, pulling clothes from his closet. "Get dressed. Warm clothes. We're going out the service entrance." "The service? The elevator you don't know exists, the hallways the help uses, the parts of your building you've never seen." She thrust clothes at him. "Move. We have maybe 20 minutes before the sedative they think you took would wear off enough for you to wake up. When you don't, they'll come check." Victor's mind was still reeling, but his body obeyed, survival mode kicking in. He dressed while Lena moved through his room with practiced efficiency, grabbing his passport, cash from the safe he didn't know she knew about, a burner phone from somewhere. "How long have you known?" he asked. 8 months? "Since I saw Mrs. Hale putting something in your morning coffee. I didn't know what it was then. Took me 3 months to figure it out. Slow-acting poison, tasteless, undetectable in normal blood work. By the time you started showing symptoms, you'd been taking it for almost a year." A year? They'd been killing him for a year. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lena looked at him with those mismatched eyes. "Would you have believed me? The maid you don't even know the name of half the time? Against your wife and your brother?" She was right. He would have had her fired. Maybe worse. Why help me at all? "Because someone should." She grabbed his arm. "Come on, questions later." She led him through his bedroom, but not to the main door. Instead, she opened what Victor had always thought was a linen closet. Behind the shelves was another door, narrow, unmarked. Service corridors, Lena explained. Every luxury building has them, for staff to move without being seen by residents. You've lived here 10 years and never knew they existed. They stepped into a different world, bare concrete walls, fluorescent lights, the guts of the building exposed. It was disorienting, like discovering hidden rooms in a house you thought you knew. Lena moved fast, pulling him downstairs through passages, past doors marked maintenance and staff only. Victor tried to keep up, but his body was failing. His legs shook, his vision blurred. He had to stop twice to catch his breath. "Almost there," Lena kept saying. "Stay with me." They emerged in a basement loading dock. The night air hit Victor like a slap, cold and real and shocking after the temperature-controlled perfection of his penthouse. A service exit led to an alley behind the building. "Where are we going?" Victor asked. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't think to look." A car was waiting. Old Honda, nothing like the luxury vehicles Victor was used to. Lena opened the passenger door and pushed him inside. "Who else knows?" Victor managed as she started the engine. "About the poisoning? Just me. About us leaving? No one. That's the point." The car pulled into traffic, and Victor watched his building disappear behind them. Somewhere up there, 43 floors above the street, his wife and brother thought he was sleeping, dying. By morning, they'd realize he was gone, and then the real game would begin. Victor looked at the woman driving, this stranger who'd saved his life, who'd been invisible for 5 years and turned out to be the only one actually seeing him. "Lena," he said. She glanced over. "Yes?" "Thank you." Her hands tightened on the wheel. "Don't thank me yet. Surviving tonight was the easy part." The Honda smelled like old coffee and cleaning supplies, a far cry from the leather and luxury Victor had surrounded himself with for 20 years. Lena drove without speaking, taking turns that seemed random, but probably weren't. Victor watched the city slide past, neighborhoods he owned pieces of but had never actually walked through, bodegas with metal gates pulled down, laundromats still glowing at 2 a.m. People huddled in doorways against the January cold. His phone buzzed. "Marcus." Victor stared at the name on the screen. "Don't answer it," Lena said without looking over. "He's been with me for 12 years. And your wife's been with you for 8. Your brother's been with you your whole life." She took a hard right down a narrow street. Trust no one means trust no one. The phone stopped buzzing, started again immediately. Victor powered it down and removed the battery, the way Marcus had taught him years ago when they were dodging federal surveillance. "Ironic. Where are we going?" he asked again. "Somewhere they won't look. The Bronx. I have a friend who owes me a favor." "What kind of friend?" "The kind who doesn't ask questions." Lena's voice was flat, offering no details. Victor realized he knew absolutely nothing about this woman. Where she came from, where she went when she left his penthouse, what her life looked like outside the 4 hours a day she spent cleaning up after him. "You've been planning this," he said. "Not a question. Since the day I figured out what they were doing." She glanced at him, those mismatched eyes unreadable in the passing streetlights. "I didn't know if you'd believe me, didn't know if I'd get the chance to warn you, but I had to try." "Why?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. Her hands tightened on the wheel. "Because nobody deserves to die like that, slowly, without even knowing." "I'm not a good man," Victor said. The truth felt strange in his mouth. "You know that, right? You've worked for me for 5 years. You've seen what I am." "I've seen what you do." "That's not the same as what you are." She took another turn, this one into a neighborhood where the streetlights were broken more often than not. "Besides, good or bad doesn't matter right now. Right now, you're just alive or dead. I'm trying to keep you on the alive side." They pulled up to a building that looked like it had survived urban decay through sheer stubbornness. Graffiti covered the ground floor. Windows on the upper levels were dark or covered with cardboard. A group of kids on the corner watched the car with professional disinterest, the kind that could turn to active interest real fast if you gave them a reason. "Stay close," Lena said, killing the engine. "Don't talk. Don't look at anyone. Just follow me." Victor's legs nearly gave out when he stood. Lena caught his arm, steadying him, and he hated how natural it felt to lean on her. They crossed the sidewalk quickly, Lena nodding to the kids on the corner in a way that said she belonged here. One of them nodded back. The building's lobby was worse than outside. Tiles cracked and missing, mailboxes hanging open, the smell of urine and something chemical Victor couldn't identify. Lena bypassed the elevator and led him to the stairs. 4 flights up, each step feeling like climbing a mountain. By the 3rd floor, Victor had to stop, gasping, his vision going dark at the edges. "Almost there," Lena said, her voice softer. 2 more floors. "Can't." "You can. You're Victor Hale. You built an empire. You can climb 2 flights of stairs." The name felt wrong now. Victor Hale was the man in the penthouse, the man who made people sweat with a glance. This person struggling to breathe in a stairwell that smelled like decay. He was someone else. Someone weaker. Someone who'd been too blind to see his own death being served to him every morning in a porcelain cup. They made it to the 5th floor. Lena knocked on a door marked 5C in faded numbers. A specific pattern. 3, quick, pause, 2, slow. The door opened a crack, chain still attached, and Victor saw one eye studying them. "Lena?" "I need help, Rosa." The chain came off. The door opened wider, revealing a woman in her 60s, gray hair pulled back, wearing a nightgown and a suspicious expression. She looked at Victor like he was something dangerous that Lena had dragged in from the street, which Victor supposed he was. "Who's this?" "Someone who needs to not be found. Can we come in?" Rosa studied Victor for a long moment, her face giving nothing away. Then she stepped aside. "You know my rules. No cops. No trouble." "You bring trouble to my door, Lena." "I know. I wouldn't be here if I had anywhere else." The apartment was small but immaculately clean. Religious icons on the walls, saints Victor didn't recognize. Family photos clustered on every surface. The smell of coffee and something baking, even at this hour. Rosa gestured them to a worn couch and disappeared into what must have been the kitchen. "Sit before you fall," Lena said, pushing Victor down. He went without arguing, too exhausted to maintain the illusion of strength. Rosa returned with water and what looked like tea. She handed the water to Victor, the tea to Lena. "You look like death," Rosa said to Victor, not unkindly, just stating a fact. "That's the goal. His, not mine." Victor took a sip of water. It tasted like nothing, which meant it tasted better than anything he'd drunk in months. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." "Lena, what kind of trouble are we talking about?" "The kind with money and lawyers and people who don't like loose ends." Lena wrapped her hands around the tea mug. "We need somewhere safe, just for tonight. By tomorrow, we'll have a plan." "We?" Rosa looked between them. "Since when is there a we?" "Since about 2 hours ago," Victor said. His head was spinning, but less than before. Maybe the poison was wearing off. Maybe he was just running on adrenaline. Either way, he needed to think clearly. Needed to figure out his next move. But his body had other ideas. The room tilted sideways, and Victor found himself on the floor without remembering falling. Voices above him, concerned and distant. How long has he been like this? Months, but it's getting worse. Need a real doctor, Lena. I can't. I know someone. But not until morning. Can you just... Hands lifted him. The couch became a bed, became darkness. When Victor woke, gray light was seeping through thin curtains. His mouth tasted like death, but his head was clearer than it had been in weeks. He was on the couch, covered with a blanket that smelled like mothballs and fabric softener. Across the room, Lana was asleep in a chair, her head at an uncomfortable angle, still wearing the same clothes from last night. Rosa appeared from the kitchen, carrying coffee. She saw Victor was awake and brought it over. "You slept 14 hours, she said quietly, so as not to wake Lena. "That girl sat up with you all night, making sure you were still breathing." Victor looked at Lena's sleeping form. Even unconscious, she looked tense, ready to run. "She saved my life." "She saves everyone. It's what she does." Rosa settled into another chair. "Found her 5 years ago, beaten half to death in an alley. No papers, no money, no English. Nursed her back to health. Got her the job with you, actually. Thought a man like you would pay well, treat her decent." Victor's stomach turned. "I never saw her?" "I know, she told me. Said you looked through her like glass." Rosa's eyes were hard. "But here she is anyway, risking everything for a man who doesn't even know her birthday." When is it? March 14th. She'll be 33. 33. Victor had assumed she was older or younger, had never thought about it at all. Why are you helping us? He asked. I'm helping her. You're just along for the ride. Rosa stood. There's food if you want it. Shower's down the hall. Lena says she's taking you to see someone today. A doctor who doesn't ask questions. What kind of doctor doesn't ask questions? The kind people like you usually employ. Lena stirred, her eyes opening slowly. For just a second, before she fully woke, her face was unguarded. Younger. Almost peaceful. Then awareness returned and the walls came back up. You're awake, she said, sitting up and immediately wincing. How do you feel? Like I've been poisoned for a year. That's accurate. She stood, stretching. We need to move soon. Rosa's neighbor is a gossip. The longer we stay, the more chance someone sees you. Where to? I told you. A doctor. Someone who can tell us exactly what they gave you and if there's a way to reverse it. Victor pushed himself upright. The world stayed mostly stable. And then? And then we figure out how to prove what they did before they realize you're not dead and come looking. They'll already be looking. I didn't show up to die on schedule. Victor pulled out the phone Lena had given him last night, still powered off. The moment I turn this on, they'll know where I am. So we don't turn it on. Not yet. Lena grabbed her jacket. Rosa, can we borrow your car? Take it. Keys are by the door. But Lena... Rosa moved closer, dropping her voice. Be careful. Men like him, they have long arms. They can reach anywhere. I know. They left through the back entrance, down a fire escape that overlooked an alley filled with dumpsters and broken dreams. The morning was cold and overcast, the kind of January day that made you forget summer existed. Lena's borrowed car was parked 2 blocks away, another old Honda, this one missing a hubcap. Victor had driven cars worth more than some people's houses. Now he was climbing into a vehicle held together with duct tape and prayer. The irony wasn't lost on him. Where's this doctor? He asked as Lena pulled into traffic. Brooklyn. Sunset Park. He used to work at Mount Sinai before he lost his license. Why'd he lose it? Because he helped people who couldn't afford help, perform procedures without proper documentation. The kind of thing that gets you disbarred in medicine but makes you a saint in neighborhoods like this. They drove through the city, crossing from the Bronx into Manhattan, and then through to Brooklyn. Victor watched familiar landmarks pass, buildings he owned, streets he controlled, territory he'd fought for. All of it meaningless now. All of it slipping through his fingers while he'd been too poisoned to notice. Tell me about them, Lena said suddenly. Who? Your wife, your brother. I've watched them for 5 years too, but I only saw the surface. You know what's underneath. Victor was quiet for a moment. Outside the window, Brooklyn was waking up, shops opening, people heading to work, life continuing like his world hadn't just imploded. Damon wasn't always like this, he said finally. When we were kids, he looked up to me. I was the older brother, the one who was going to take over the family business. He was supposed to be the respectable one. Go to law school, run the legitimate side. What changed? Our father died. Left everything to me. Damon got a salary and a title, but no real power. I think he's been angry about it for 10 years. Victor rubbed his face. Can't blame him. I would have been angry too. And your wife? Ilara was supposed to be a business arrangement. Her father owned half the judges in New York. Our marriage was a merger. Victor's laugh was bitter. I thought we understood each other. Thought we had an agreement. Turns out the only thing she understood was that I was worth more dead than alive. When did they start? Lena asked. The affair, I mean. Don't know. Could have been going on for years. Could have started the day after we got married. He looked at Lena. How much did you see? In the house. Enough. They weren't always careful. Sometimes I'd come into a room and they'd be too close, or I'd hear them laughing together in a way that wasn't professional. She turned down a side street. Your brother used to come by when you were at the office. Stay for hours. I thought maybe he was there to see you. Took me a while to realize the pattern. Which was? He only came when you weren't home, and Mrs. Hale was always dressed differently on those days. Happier. The words landed like punches. Victor had missed all of it, every sign, every tell. He'd been too focused on the empire, on the next deal, on maintaining power. while his wife had been planning his murder right under his nose. "I was blind," he said. "You were trusting. There's a difference. In my world, trust gets you killed." "Yeah, well, welcome to the rest of the world, where it gets you killed too. Just slower." Lena pulled up to a building that looked only marginally better than Rose's. "We're here. Let me do the talking." The doctor's office was in the basement, accessed through a door that said "Deliveries Only." Lena knocked twice, then once, then twice again. A lock clicked, and the door opened to reveal a man in his 50s, Latino, wearing scrubs that had seen better days. "Lena." His smile was warm but cautious. "You said emergency. This is—" She hesitated, and Victor realized she was about to lie. "Michael, he's been poisoned. We need to know what and how to fix it." The doctor's eyes moved to Victor, taking in his appearance with professional assessment. "Poisoned how?" "Slowly, over months. We think it's something that mimics natural illness. Come in, quick." The office was cleaner than Victor expected. Medical equipment that looked legitimate, if old. Examination table. Cabinets full of supplies. The doctor, Lena called him Dr. Santos, gestured Victor to the table. "Tell me your symptoms. Everything. Don't leave anything out." Victor listed them. The exhaustion. The brain fog. The shaking hands. The way his body had been shutting down piece by piece. "Doctor." Santos listened, making notes, his face growing more serious. "When did it start?" "About a year ago. Subtle at first. Got worse over time." "And someone's been giving you something regularly? Food, drink, medication?" "All three, probably. My wife. Maybe my personal physician." Dr. Santos pulled out a blood pressure cuff, started running basic tests, temperature, heart rate, reflexes. Each result made his frown deepen. "Your blood pressure's low. Heart rate's irregular. Your liver function is probably compromised. I need to run blood work. But based on what you're telling me, I'd guess something like thallium or a slow-acting arsenic compound. Can you treat it?" "Maybe. Depends on how much damage has been done. Thallium poisoning can be reversed with Prussian blue if we catch it in time. Arsenic has chelation therapy. But first I need to know what we're dealing with." He pulled out a needle. "This will take a few hours to process. I have a lab guy who owes me a favor." Victor held out his arm. The needle pinch was nothing compared to the knowledge that his own body had become a battlefield. "How long?" he asked. "How long what? How long do I have? If we can't treat it?" Dr. Santos was quiet for a moment. "Hard to say. If they've been dosing you for a year and you're still alive, your body's fighting it. But there's a tipping point. Once your organs start failing—" He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. "Weeks," Victor said. They said 2 weeks. "Then we work fast." Dr. Santos labeled the blood sample. "Where are you staying?" "We're not. We're moving." "You need to rest. Let your body heal. Running around the city in your condition will keep me alive longer than staying still and waiting for them to find me." Victor slid off the table. "How soon before you have results?" "Tonight. Maybe tomorrow morning. I'll call Lena." They left through the same delivery entrance. The morning had turned into afternoon, gray sky deepening to the color of old concrete. Victor's legs felt like water, but he forced himself to keep moving. Lena watched him with that same concerned expression, and he hated it, hated being weak, hated needing help. "What now?" she asked when they were back in the car. "Now I need to access my resources without anyone knowing." "Your resources are in your penthouse, in your office, protected by people who work for your brother now." "Not all of them." Victor's mind was starting to work again, pieces clicking into place. "I have safe deposit boxes, cash, passports under different names. Things I set up years ago for exactly this kind of situation." "You planned for your wife and brother trying to murder you?" "I planned for someone trying to murder me. Didn't matter who." Victor pulled out the burner phone. "I need to make a call, someone I trust." "You said trust no one." "I said trust no one in my inner circle. This is outer circle. Way outer." He dialed a number he'd memorized years ago. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. "Yeah?" The voice was rough, suspicious. "It's Hale. I need a favor." Silence. Then, Heard you were dead. Heard wrong. Can you meet me? Depends. What kind of favor? The kind that pays well and asks no questions. Another pause. Where? You remember that place in Queens, the warehouse job? I remember. 2 hours. Come alone. Victor hung up and looked at Lena. We need to get to Queens. Who was that? Tommy Reeves used to run jobs for me 10 years ago. Enforcement, collection. The kind of work that doesn't show up on tax forms. Victor felt the exhaustion pulling at him again. He retired to New Jersey, got out clean. If anyone's going to help me without reporting back to Damon, it's him. They drove to Queens in silence. Victor dozed off twice, jerking awake with his heart racing, convinced they'd been caught. Each time, Lena was just driving, her eyes on the road, her face unreadable. The warehouse was in Long Island City, near the waterfront, abandoned for years, scheduled for demolition that never came. Victor had used it for meetings that needed to stay off the books, the kind where people walked in and sometimes didn't walk out. They parked a block away and waited. Victor watched the street, looking for surveillance, for faces that didn't belong. His instincts were rusty from months of poison, but they were still there. A truck pulled up. Old F-150, seen better days. Tommy Reeves got out, bigger than Victor remembered, grayer, but still moving like someone who could handle himself. He scanned the area, clocked the Honda, and started walking toward the warehouse. Stay here, Victor told Lena. Like hell. If this goes wrong, we both need to run. I'm coming. They approached from different angles, Victor from the front, watching Tommy disappear inside. The warehouse was dark and cold, lit only by gaps in the roof where pigeons nested. Tommy stood in the center, hands visible, no weapon drawn. You look like shit, Vic. Thanks. Seriously, you dying or what? Working on not. Tommy's eyes moved to Lena, who'd come in behind Victor. Who's she? Someone who's keeping me alive. Huh. Tommy looked at Victor again. So what's the play? Word on the street is your brother's running things now. Your wife's planning your funeral. You're either dead or about to be. Word on the street is wrong. I'm alive. I'm pissed. And I need help. What kind of help? I need access to my safe deposit box at Atlantic Trust. But I can't walk in there looking like this. Too many questions. Tommy scratched his jaw. What's in it for me? 50,000, cash, plus whatever you find in the box that you want. I don't work for you anymore, Vic. I know. That's why I'm asking. Tommy was quiet for a long moment, then he sighed. Atlantic Trust on 43rd? Yeah. I know a guy, works security there. Might be able to get us in after hours, but we're talking breaking and entering. Federal charges if we get caught. We won't get caught. Famous last words. Tommy pulled out his phone. Give me an hour. Meet me at the diner on 39th, the one with the good pie. He left without another word, the truck rumbling away into afternoon traffic. Lena turned to Victor. Can we trust him? More than anyone else right now. They killed the hour at a park near the water, watching joggers and people walking dogs, and the city pretending everything was normal. Victor's phone buzzed. Not the burner, his actual phone. Still powered off, but somehow vibrating. He stared at it. Don't, Lena said. I need to know what they're doing, what they're saying. You turn that on, they'll trace it. Find us within the hour. I'll keep it on for 30 seconds. Check messages. That's it. Before Lena could stop him, Victor powered up the phone. It came to life with a flood of notifications. 53 missed calls. 37 text messages. 6 voicemails. He opened the texts first. Most were from Damon. Where are you? Vic, answer your phone. We need to talk. Now. This isn't funny. Call me immediately. Then one from Alara. Darling, I'm worried. Please come home. The voicemails were more of the same. Damon's voice getting progressively more tense. Alara's staying sweet and concerned. Marcus asking for instructions. His lawyer demanding a call back. Then the last voicemail, time-stamped 2 hours ago. Damon's voice. And all pretense of concern was gone. Victor, I know you're alive. I know you ran. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you're going to do, stop. Come home. We can talk about this. Work something out. But if you make this difficult, if you try to fight me, you'll lose. You're sick. You're weak. You have nothing. I have everything. Your organization, your lawyers, your money, all of it. So do yourself a favor and come home before this gets ugly." The message ended. Victor powered down the phone, his hands shaking. "They know," Lena said quietly. "Yeah, they know." "What does that change?" "Everything. Now they're not just waiting for me to die, they're hunting me." Victor woke to the sound of someone vomiting. It took him a moment to realize it was him, bent over a plastic basin while Santos held his shoulders steady. His body was rejecting everything, the poison, the treatment, maybe life itself. "That's good," Santos said, which seemed like a lie. "Getting it out. That's what we want." Victor's throat burned. His mouth tasted like copper and chemicals. When he tried to speak, nothing came out but a rasp. "Don't talk. Just breathe." Santos eased him back onto the pillows. "You've been out for 18 hours. This is normal. Your body's fighting." 18 hours. Victor tried to process that. A day and a half gone while he'd been unconscious. Anything could have happened. Lena could be dead. Damon could have won. The world could have ended, and Victor would have missed it. "Phone," he managed. "No phone. Doctor's orders. You need to rest, not stress." Santos checked the IV lines. Besides, the woman, Lena, she said no contact, said it was safer that way. Victor wanted to argue, but another wave of nausea hit him, and the argument died in his throat. He spent the next 20 minutes retching into the basin while Santos monitored vitals and murmured reassurances that felt hollow. When it finally passed, Victor lay back, sweat-soaked and shaking. The ceiling above him had water stains that looked like continents. He traced their shapes, trying to focus on something other than the feeling that his insides were dissolving. "How much longer?" he asked. "Another 48 hours minimum, maybe more." Santos replaced the IV bag with a fresh one. "The good news is your kidney function is stabilizing. You're responding to treatment, but it's a marathon, not a sprint." 2 more days of this. 2 more days of being helpless while Lena did whatever she was doing with the information he'd given her. Victor closed his eyes and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Across town, in a coffee shop in the financial district, Lena sat with a laptop she'd bought with Victor's cash and a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. The flash drive was in her pocket, encrypted files waiting to be unleashed. But she wasn't ready for that yet. First, she needed to understand the landscape. Needed to know who was loyal to Damon and who was just going along because they thought Victor was dying. She'd started with the easy targets. Lower-level associates who did the grunt work and gossiped in places they thought were safe. A bar in Hell's Kitchen where Victor's collection crews drank. A restaurant in Chinatown where money got counted and distributed. She'd gone as herself, invisible housemaid, nobody worth noticing, and listened. The picture that emerged wasn't good. Damon had moved fast. In the weeks since Victor disappeared, he'd consolidated control over most of the organization. The legitimate businesses, the real estate holdings, the political connections, all of it now flowed through Damon. He'd done it smoothly, too, framing it as temporary measures while Victor was recovering. Nobody questioned it. Why would they? Victor looked sick. Damon looked healthy. In their world, that was all the justification needed. But there were cracks. People who remembered Victor's loyalty, who didn't trust Damon's sudden rise. Marcus was one, despite his defection. Lena had seen it in his eyes when he'd let Victor go at the bank. He was following Damon because it made sense, not because he believed in it. That was leverage. She spent 3 days building a map, names, relationships, who owed what to whom. Where the bodies were buried, literally and figuratively. Victor's flash drive had most of it, but Lena added her own observations. 5 years of watching and listening had given her insights Victor never had. She knew which marriages were failing, which associates were skimming, which politicians were lying to everyone, including themselves. On the 4th day, she made her first move. Senator Richard Morrison had taken bribes from Victor for 6 years. Judges appointed, zoning laws adjusted, investigations quietly dropped, all documented in files Victor had meticulously kept. Insurance, he'd called it. Leverage for when you needed people to remember who really held power. Lena sent Morrison a text from an untraceable phone. "The files on Project Riverside are going to the Times unless you call me in the next hour. This is not a negotiation." She waited in a park in Battery City, watching tourists take selfies with the Statue of Liberty in the background. Her phone rang in 45 minutes. "Who is this?" Morrison's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Someone who has everything Victor Hale had on you, and I'm willing to use it. Hale's dead, or as good as. Hale's alive, and he's coming for everyone who betrayed him, but I'm offering you a chance to get ahead of this. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you want? Information. Damon Hale met with you last week. What did he want? I can't. Project Riverside. 20 million in development funds that you diverted. 3 counts of fraud, 2 counts of bribery. I send this to the Times. You're finished by dinner. Lena's voice was calm, factual. Or you talk to me and the files stay buried. Your choice. Morrison broke. They always did. 20 minutes later, Lena had confirmation of what she'd suspected. Damon was meeting with all of Victor's political assets, offering them the same deal. Support his takeover, and business continues as usual. Refuse, and he'd use Victor's files against them. It was smart. Damon was weaponizing Victor's own leverage, but it had a weakness. The files were Victor's, not Damon's, which meant Damon didn't actually control them. Lena did. She made 4 more calls that day. A judge in Brooklyn who'd fixed 3 trials. A union boss who'd taken payoffs to look the other way during construction jobs. A real estate developer who'd built half of Queens on laundered money. Each conversation followed the same script. I have the files, I will use them. But I'm offering you a different option. By the end of the day, she had 5 people who were willing to listen. Not loyal, not committed, just uncertain enough to hedge their bets. It was a start. Back in Santos's clinic, Victor was finally strong enough to sit up without vomiting. It was a low bar, but he'd take the victory. Santos had brought him soup, chicken broth with nothing in it that could upset his stomach, and Victor was forcing it down despite tasting like salted water. You're doing better, Santos observed. Color's coming back. Tremors are less severe. When can I leave? Another few days. I want to make sure the treatment's taken hold. Rush this and you could relapse. Victor wanted to argue, but he knew Santos was right. His body felt like it had been taken apart and poorly reassembled. Every movement hurt. Every breath was work. He wasn't ready to fight anyone. But sitting here doing nothing was driving him insane. Can I at least have a phone? Check the news? Santos considered it. News only. No calls. No messages. Your blood pressure's still elevated. Don't need you stressing yourself into a stroke. He brought Victor a tablet, already loaded with news sites. Victor scrolled through headlines, looking for anything about his organization, his brother, his life imploding. But there was nothing. Whatever was happening below the surface. The kind of warfare that didn't make headlines until someone ended up dead. Then he found it, buried in the business section. Small article, easy to miss. Hale Enterprises announces restructuring. Damon Hale, Executive Vice President of Hale Enterprises, announced today that the company is undergoing a temporary restructuring due to CEO, Victor Hale's ongoing health issues. My brother is receiving the best care possible, Damon stated at a press conference. But during his recovery, the company needs steady leadership. I'm honored to step into that role. The article went on. Stock prices, analyst predictions, corporate speak that meant nothing. But the message was clear. Damon was taking over publicly now, making it official. By the time Victor came back, if he came back, there'd be nothing left to reclaim. Victor threw the tablet across the room. It hit the wall and cracked, screen spiderwebbing. Santos came running. What happened? Are you? I'm fine. I'm sorry. I'll pay for that. Victor put his head in his hands. I just needed to break something. Santos picked up the broken tablet. Want to talk about it? No. Yes. I don't know. Victor looked up. I built something. Spent 20 years building it. And my brother's taking it apart in a week while I'm lying here drinking chicken broth. You're not lying here. You're recovering. There's a difference. Doesn't feel like it. Doesn't matter how it feels. Matters what's true. Santos sat in the chair by the bed. You want my professional opinion? You were dead a week ago. Didn't know it, but you were. Now you're alive. Sick, yeah. Weak, yeah. But alive, that's not nothing. It's not enough either. Maybe not. But it's what you've got right now. Santos stood. Get some rest. Let the medicine work. Let your friend work. And when you're strong enough, then you fight. Victor wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that by the time he was strong enough, it would be too late. But exhaustion was pulling at him again. the treatment leaving him drained. He slept, dreamed of the penthouse, of Alara's cold kiss, of Damon's smile that didn't reach his eyes, of Lena's face in the closet telling him to stay quiet, to trust her. When he woke, it was dark outside. Santos was asleep in the other room, snoring softly. Victor checked the clock. 3 a.m. The dead hour when the city was as quiet as it ever got. His phone, the burner Lena had given him, was in the gym bag in the corner. Santos had told him no contact, but Santos wasn't his boss. Victor pulled himself out of bed, legs shaky but functional, and retrieved the phone. No messages. No calls. Either Lena was fine or she was dead, and Victor had no way of knowing which. He was about to power it off when it buzzed in his hand. Text from an unknown number. Moved 5 pawns. King still thinks he's winning. Stay dark. Victor stared at the message. 5 pawns. 5 people she'd flipped or leveraged or convinced. Not enough to take down Damon, but enough to make him nervous. Enough to show that Victor wasn't as dead as everyone thought. He typed a response. What's the play? The reply came 30 seconds later. Chaos, then precision. You taught me that. Victor hadn't taught her anything, but maybe that was the point. Lena had learned by watching, by being invisible in rooms where power was discussed and lives were bargained. She'd seen how Victor operated, and now she was using those same tactics against the people who thought they'd won. He wanted to tell her to be careful, to not take unnecessary risks, but what came out was different. Don't get killed. I still owe you. You don't owe me anything. Just get healthy. I need you angry, not dead. The conversation ended there. Victor put the phone away and climbed back into bed. His body was wrecked, his empire was crumbling, and he was trusting his life to a woman he'd ignored for 5 years. But for the first time since waking up in that closet, he felt something other than fear. He felt hope. Lena's second move came 2 days later. She'd identified Damon's weak point. Alara. The affair had been going on for years. Lena was certain of that now. She'd seen the signs, collected the evidence. Hotel receipts Victor had never noticed. Text messages that had been deleted but not thoroughly enough. A pattern of behavior that screamed guilt to anyone paying attention. But Damon and Alara had been careful. Never in public. Never anywhere that could be traced back to them. They'd built their conspiracy in shadows, and now they were living in those same shadows. Lena was going to drag them into the light. She started with Alara's therapist. Dr. Patricia Keene, Upper East Side office, client list that read like a who's who of Manhattan society. Lena had found the connection in Victor's files. Alara had been seeing Keene for 3 years, paid in cash to keep it off insurance records. Therapist-client privilege was sacred, but everyone had a price. Lena waited outside Keene's building until the doctor emerged for lunch, followed her to a bistro 2 blocks away, waited until Keene was alone with her salad before approaching. Doctor, Keene, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm writing an article about confidential treatment ethics. Could I ask you a few questions? Keene looked up, immediately wary. I don't give interviews. Of course, I understand. It's just... Lena pulled out a photo. Alara and Damon, taken through a restaurant window 3 months ago. Close together. Too close. I'm particularly interested in cases where therapists have knowledge of criminal activity, how they balance privilege against civic duty. Keene's face went pale. Where did you get that? The same place I got transcripts from your sessions with Alara Hale. The ones where she discusses her affair with her husband's brother and their plan to murder him. Lena sat down uninvited. Of course, those sessions are privileged, unless there's evidence of ongoing criminal activity, which this is. You can't... You didn't report it, despite knowing a man was being poisoned. That's conspiracy after the fact at minimum. Could be accessory to attempted murder. Lena leaned forward. But I'm not interested in ruining your career, doctor. I'm interested in one thing, confirmation. Did Alara Hale discuss murdering her husband in your sessions? Keene's hands were shaking. She was trapped and she knew it. Confirming broke privilege. Denying made her complicit. Either way, her career was over if this got out. I want immunity, she said finally. I'm not a prosecutor. I can't offer immunity. Then what can you offer? Silence. You confirm what I already know, and this conversation never happened. You deny it, and I take everything I have to the DA's office. Keen stared at her salad, at the life she'd built that was crumbling in real time. Yes, she discussed it, multiple times. Said it was hypothetical at first, then it became a plan. She was conflicted about it, felt guilty. But she said Damon convinced her it was the only way. Did she say what poison they were using? Thallium. Small doses in his morning coffee. She said it had to look natural, like his body was just giving out. Keen looked up, and there were tears in her eyes. I should have reported it. I know I should have, but she was my patient. I hoped she wouldn't actually do it. But she did. Yes, she did. Lena recorded the conversation on her phone. Not admissible in court, probably, but useful for other things. She stood to leave. What happens now? Keen asked. Now you forget we had this conversation, and you start looking for a good lawyer, because when this breaks, people are going to ask why you didn't report it. She left Keen sitting there, salad untouched, career ending before dessert. The recording went into Lena's collection. One more piece of evidence, one more nail in the coffin she was building. But evidence wasn't enough. She needed Damon and Alara to make a mistake, needed them scared and sloppy. And for that, she needed them to know Victor was still alive and coming for them. That night, Lena sent an email to Damon's personal account. No return address. Untraceable. The email contained one thing: a photo from the closet, Victor's phone camera, recording through the gap, Alara and Damon toasting Victor's death, the timestamp clearly visible. Below the photo, one line of text. He knows, and he's not dying anymore. She hit send and imagined Damon's face when he opened it. The panic. The realization that they hadn't won after all, that their victim had escaped and was now hunting them. It was cruel, maybe unnecessary, but Lena had learned cruelty in Medellin, and sometimes it was the most efficient tool. Damon opened the email at 11 p.m., sitting in Victor's old office, drinking Victor's bourbon, living Victor's life. The photo loaded slowly, and for a moment he didn't understand what he was seeing. Then it registered. His face. Alara's face. That night. The conversation that was supposed to be private. Someone had recorded it. Someone had been there. He called Alara immediately. She answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. What's wrong? We have a problem. A big one. Damon forwarded her the email, waited while she opened it, heard her sharp intake of breath. Where did this... I don't know. But someone was in the penthouse that night. Someone recorded us. Victor? Has to be. Or someone working for him. Damon's mind was racing, trying to figure out the angles. He's alive, and he's got evidence. We knew he might have survived. That's why you put people on the banks. Surviving and having proof are different things. Damon stared at the photo. This puts us both in prison if it gets out. So what do we do? Find him. Find whoever's helping him, and make this problem go away permanently. Damon stood, pacing. Call Marcus. Tell him I need Victor found now, not tomorrow. Now. Marcus said he got away clean, said he's in the wind. Then we make him come out of the wind. We put pressure on everyone he knows, everyone he might turn to. Damon's voice was cold now, calculating. And we do it loud enough that he hears about it. Victor thinks he's hunting us? Fine. We'll see who's better at this game. Alara was quiet for a moment. You're scared. I'm cautious. There's a difference. We can still win this. Victor's sick, dying, even with treatment. All we have to do is wait him out. Waiting got us here. Action ends this. Damon hung up and immediately called Marcus. The security chief answered on the first ring. Yeah? I'm sending you something. Look at it and tell me who took it. Damon forwarded the photo, heard Marcus's sharp exhale when he saw it. Where did you get this? Anonymous email, which means Victor's got it, which means we're exposed. Damon's patience was wearing thin. I thought you said he was dying. He is dying. The poison didn't work fast enough. Now he's got evidence and he's using it. So tell me, Marcus, how do we fix this? Marcus was quiet. Damon could practically hear him thinking through the angles. The photo was taken from inside the bedroom. Whoever took it was hiding, close enough to hear, see everything. So it wasn't Victor. He was supposed to be unconscious. Someone else was there. Someone who had access to the penthouse. This realization hit Damon like cold water. The maid. What? Lena, the housemaid. She's the only one who could have been there, who could have hidden him, helped him escape. Damon's mind was racing now. She was in the service corridors. That's how they got out, the hallways we never see. You think a housemaid is behind this? I think we've been underestimating someone we shouldn't have. Find her, Marcus. Find her and bring her to me. What about Victor? Forget Victor. He's sick. He's weak. He's probably in some clinic somewhere trying not to die. But her... Damon looked at the photo again, at the angle, at the clarity. She's the one moving. She's the one with the evidence. We take her out. We take out Victor's leverage. Marcus agreed and hung up. Damon sat back in Victor's chair in Victor's office and tried to think like his brother would think. Victor had always been 3 steps ahead, always had a contingency, always knew where the knives were before they came out. But Victor was dying, and his contingency was a housemaid who'd been invisible for 5 years. That was a mistake, the kind of mistake that got you killed. Damon smiled. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Across town, Lena felt her phone buzz. Another burner, this one just for monitoring chatter. She'd planted bugs in 3 locations: Damon's office, the penthouse, Alara's car. Insurance, in case she needed to know what they were planning. The bug in Damon's office had just transmitted Damon's half of a conversation. Lena listened to it twice, making sure she understood. They knew about her now, knew she was the one helping Victor, which meant they'd be coming for her. Good. She'd been invisible for 5 years. Time to step into the light. Lena didn't run. That would have been smart, probably, safer. But she'd spent her whole life running, from Medellin, from violence, from the kind of poverty that killed you slowly, and she was tired of it. Besides, running now meant leaving Victor exposed, meant letting Damon and Alara win. She made one stop before disappearing. The penthouse. It was stupid, walking back into the place where this had all started, where she'd spent 5 years cleaning up after people who never saw her. But there was something she needed, and it was worth the risk. The building's service entrance was still accessible with her keycard. Security hadn't thought to deactivate it. Why would they? She was just the maid, invisible, forgettable. She took the service elevator up the same route she'd used to escape with Victor. The corridors were empty at 2 a.m., staff gone home, residents asleep in their expensive beds. The penthouse was dark when she entered. Lena moved through it like a ghost, muscle memory guiding her through rooms she'd cleaned 1,000 times. She went straight to Victor's study, to the filing cabinet behind the false panels she'd discovered 2 years ago. Victor thought it was hidden. It wasn't. Not if you were the person who dusted around it every week and noticed the scratches on the floor where it had been moved. Inside were the real files, not the digital ones on the flash drive. The physical evidence Victor kept as a final insurance policy. Photos, contracts, recordings on old cassette tapes that nobody used anymore. 20 years of crimes and secrets, all documented and stored because Victor understood that power wasn't just about what you could do. It was about what you could prove. Lena filled a bag with everything she could carry. Then she went to Alara's bedroom. The safe was behind a painting, original Monet, probably worth millions. Lena had watched Alara open it enough times to know the combination. Inside was jewelry, cash, and something else, a leather journal. Alara's handwriting filling page after page. Lena flipped through it. Dates, meetings with Damon, her feelings about Victor, her justifications for what they were doing, and there, in her own writing, the plan. How much poison, when to administer it, what symptoms to watch for. A confession, written by someone who never imagined anyone would read it. Lena pocketed the journal and was about to leave when she heard the elevator. Someone was coming up. She checked her watch. 2:47 a.m. Nobody should be here. She moved fast, back into the service corridors, pulling the hidden door shut just as the elevator chimed. Through a gap in the panel, she watched Alara enter the penthouse. Not alone. Damon was with her. Being paranoid, Alara was saying. Victor's half dead in some clinic. His maid is probably back in whatever country she came from. She's from Colombia, and she's not gone. She's the one who sent that photo. Damon moved through the penthouse like he owned it, which, legally, he almost did now. Marcus is checking her apartment. We'll find her. And then what? Then we make sure she can't testify, can't talk, can't do anything. Damon poured himself a drink at the bar. You said you were okay with this. With all of it. I am. Alara sat on the couch where she'd toasted Victor's death a week ago. I didn't think it would be this complicated. Murder's always complicated. That's why most people don't do it. Damon drank. But we're committed now. No turning back. Lena recorded the conversation on her phone. More evidence. More nails and coffins. She waited until they moved to the bedroom, then slipped out the way she'd come. By the time she was back on the street, her heart was hammering and her hands were shaking. She'd just walked into the lion's den and walked back out, with evidence that could bury them both. But she'd also heard the important part. Marcus was checking her apartment, which meant they knew where she lived, knew more about her than she'd thought. Time to disappear for real. Lena had 3 safe houses, places she'd set up over the years using cash from jobs Rosa had connected her to. Cleaning rich people's apartments paid well when you knew which ones didn't ask questions about immigration status. She'd saved every dollar she could, preparing for the day when she might need to run. That day had come. The first safe house was in Washington Heights, studio apartment, paid for 6 months in advance under a fake name. She went there first, checking for surveillance, for any sign that Marcus had found it. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Which meant it was probably compromised. She didn't go in. The second was in Red Hook, Brooklyn, above a bodega owned by a guy who'd done time with Rosa's son. He'd rented her the room for cash and a promise not to bring trouble. She called him from a payphone. It's Lena. Is anyone watching the building? Watching? Like who? Like anyone who doesn't belong. Silence. Then, there's a car. Been parked across the street for 2 hours. Guy inside, not doing anything, just sitting. What's he look like? Big, white, looks like a cop. Marcus's people. They'd found 2 of her 3 places. Thanks. I owe you. You bring trouble to my door, Lena, and we're done. Me and Rosa, we're square, but not if this gets me jammed up. It won't, I promise. She hung up. That left the 3rd location, the one she'd hoped she wouldn't need. It wasn't in New York at all. It was in Newark, across the river in New Jersey. A room in a boarding house run by a woman who'd fled Guatemala in the 80s and understood what it meant to need a place the government couldn't find. Lena took 3 buses and 2 trains to get there, changing direction twice, watching for tails. By the time she arrived, it was almost dawn. The boarding house looked like it was held together with prayer and spite. Mrs. Gutierrez answered the door in a bathrobe, took one look at Lena, and nodded. Trouble? The worst kind. Men with guns or men with badges? Both probably. Mrs. Gutierrez stepped aside. Room 4, top floor. Cash only, $200 a week. You bring police? I never saw you. Lena paid for 2 weeks and climbed stairs that creaked like they might give up any moment. Room 4 was barely big enough for a bed and a dresser, but it had a window with a fire escape and a lock on the door. More importantly, nobody knew about it except Rosa, and Rosa would die before giving her up. She locked herself in and finally let the fear catch up with her. Her hands were still shaking. Her heart was still racing. She'd been operating on adrenaline and anger, but now, alone in this tiny room in Newark, the reality hit. She was being hunted by people who'd already proven they'd kill to protect their secrets. And she was doing it for a man who'd never even learned her birthday. Lena pulled out the journal she'd taken from Alara's safe, flipped through pages of justification and planning, found an entry from 6 months ago. Damon says we're doing Victor a favor. He's becoming his father, paranoid, cruel, impossible to reach. Better he goes quickly than slowly destroys everything he built. I almost believe it. Almost. Further down the page, sometimes I look at Victor and wonder if he ever loved me. Or if I was just another acquisition, a trophy wife for a man who collected power like other people collect art. Lena closed the journal. For just a second, she almost felt sorry for Alara. Almost understood how someone could justify murder when they felt invisible in their own life. Then she remembered Victor retching into a basin, his body trying to reject the poison his wife had been feeding him for a year. Remembered the casual way Alara and Damon had toasted his death. Sympathy died fast. Her phone buzzed. The burner she'd given Victor. She told him no contact, but apparently he didn't follow instructions well. Where are you? Are you safe? She stared at the message. Safe was relative, alive was more accurate. I'm fine. Stay dark. Don't contact me again. Lena, I mean it. Every message is a risk. Let me work. She powered off the phone and pulled out her laptop. Time to escalate. The files Victor had kept were damning, but they were also old. Most of them dated back years. What she needed was something current, something that would hurt Damon now, not remind people of what Victor used to be. She started with the money. Victor's flash drive had shown her the basics. Damon had been siphoning funds from the organization for months, but it was subtle, hidden in legitimate transactions, the kind of thing you'd only notice if you were looking. Lena had been looking. She spent 6 hours tracing the money trail, offshore accounts, shell companies, a web of financial deception that would take prosecutors months to untangle. But there was a pattern. Every transaction went through one bank, Atlantic Trust, the same bank where Victor had his safe deposit box. And Atlantic Trust had problems. Federal investigators had been circling them for years, looking for money laundering. They just couldn't prove it. Lena could give them proof. She compiled everything into a package: account numbers, transaction dates, names of everyone involved. Then she added something extra: the recording of Alara's therapist admitting she knew about the poisoning, the photos from the closet, Damon and Alara discussing Victor's imminent death, evidence of conspiracy to commit murder, evidence of financial crimes, all wrapped up in a bow. She created an anonymous email account and addressed it to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Then she hesitated. Once she sent this, there was no taking it back. The FBI would investigate. Arrests would be made. And everyone would know Victor was behind it, that he was alive, active, and fighting back. Damon would come for him with everything he had. But what choice did they have? Victor was getting stronger, but he wasn't strong enough to fight this alone. And Lena couldn't keep playing defense forever. Eventually, Marcus would find her. Eventually, she'd make a mistake. Better to go on offense. Better to burn everything down and hope Victor could rise from the ashes. She hit send. The email went out at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. By Wednesday morning, federal agents were knocking on Atlantic Trust's doors with warrants. By noon, Damon's phone was ringing with panicked calls from associates whose accounts had been frozen. Lena watched it unfold from a coffee shop in Newark, using free Wi-Fi on her laptop. The news coverage was better than she'd hoped. Federal investigation into money laundering, organized crime connections. Names weren't being released yet, but it was only a matter of time. Damon had to be losing his mind. She was right. Across the river in Manhattan, Damon was in his office watching his empire crumble in real time. The phone hadn't stopped ringing. His lawyer was saying words like exposure and liability. Marcus was trying to figure out how the FBI had gotten information they should have never been able to access. And Alara was crying, mascara running down her face, saying she didn't sign up for this. "Pull yourself together," Damon snapped. "We can still salvage this." Salvage what? The FBI has our financial records. They're going to trace everything back to us. They have some records. Not all of them. And what they have doesn't prove anything criminal. What about the money you moved? The accounts in the Caymans? Those are clean, untraceable. Damon wasn't sure that was true, but saying it out loud made it feel more real. Victor's bluffing, trying to scare us. It's working. Marcus entered without knocking. We've got a bigger problem. The feds are asking about Victor, about his health, about who's been running the organization since he got sick. What did you tell them? Nothing. But they know something. Someone's talking. Who? Who's talking? Damon was on his feet now, pacing. We've got everyone locked down. Everyone who matters is on our side. Are they? Marcus pulled out his phone, showing Damon a text message. Got this an hour ago. From Senator Morrison. Says he's cooperating with investigators. Says he has recordings of conversations with you. Damon's blood went cold. Morrison. One of Victor's oldest assets. One of the politicians Damon had been certain would stay loyal. He's lying. He doesn't have recordings. He does. I heard the playback. Your voice, clear as day, discussing how to handle the transition of power. How to keep Victor's people in line. That's not illegal. It is when you mention the poison. When you tell Morrison that Victor's health problems are being managed. Marcus's face was grim. You got sloppy, boss, and now Morrison's using it to save himself. Alara made a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. We're finished. We're not finished. Not yet. But Damon's mind was racing, trying to find the angle, the play, the way out. Victor had taught him that there was always a way out. You just had to be willing to pay the price. What do you want to do? Marcus asked. I want Victor found. I want Lena Cruz found. And I want them both dead before they can testify. Damon's voice was ice. No more playing defense. We go on offense. We make this problem disappear. That's a bad idea, Marcus said carefully. You kill Victor now with the FBI watching, and you'll be the first person they look at. Then make it look like an accident. Make it look like his body finally gave out. He's been sick. Everyone knows it. Won't be hard to believe. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll make some calls. After Marcus left, Damon stood at the window looking out at the city. His city now, supposedly. Except it didn't feel like his. It felt like Victor's ghost was everywhere, haunting him, making him pay for every betrayal. Alara came up behind him. We could run. Take what we have and disappear. Run where? They'll find us eventually. Better to end this here. By killing your brother? He's not my brother anymore. He's a problem, and I solve problems. Damon turned to face her. Are you with me or not? Because if you're not, I need to know now. Alara wiped her eyes, straightened her spine. I'm with you. I've come this far. Good. Then we finish this. In Newark, Lena's phone buzzed. A different phone, one she'd set up to monitor police scanners. There was chatter about a potential hit. No names mentioned, but the location was Brooklyn. Sunset Park. Santos's clinic. They'd found Victor. Lena was moving before she finished the thought. Out of the coffee shop, running for the bus station. Newark to Brooklyn was an hour on a good day, longer with traffic. She didn't have an hour. She called the clinic from a payphone, praying Santos would answer. He did, on the fourth ring. It's Lena. You need to move Victor. Now. What? Why? Because they found him. They're coming. You've got maybe 20 minutes. I can't move him. He's still on IVs, still recovering. Then he dies there. Your choice. Lena hung up and ran. She made it to Brooklyn in 45 minutes, which felt like hours. The clinic looked normal from the outside. No cars that didn't belong. No obvious surveillance. But Lena's instincts were screaming. She went in through the back, the way she and Victor had entered the first time. Found Santos in the main room, frantically disconnecting IV lines from Victor's arms. Victor was awake, pale, but awake. What's happening? You're leaving, now. Lena grabbed the gym bag with his documents and cash. Can you walk? I can try. Try hard. We don't have time. Santos got Victor to his feet. He swayed, catching himself on the bed frame. Too weak, too slow. They weren't going to make it. Then Lena heard it. Car doors slamming outside. Voices. Someone trying the front entrance. Back door, she said. Now. They half-carried Victor through the clinic and out the back exit into an alley that smelled like garbage and desperation. Lena's borrowed car was parked 2 blocks away. They'd never make it. A door opened behind them. Footsteps. Someone shouting for them to stop. Lena didn't stop. She pulled Victor forward, Santos on his other side. The three of them stumbling through the alley like the world's most pathetic escape attempt. A gunshot cracked the air. The brick wall beside them exploded in dust and fragments. Go! Santos shoved them forward. I'll hold them off. You don't have a gun, Lena said. I have a phone. I'll call the cops. Say there's a shooting. They'll scatter. Santos was already dialing. Get him out of here. That's what matters. Another shot. Closer this time. Lena didn't argue. She pulled Victor toward the street, toward where the car should be, toward anything that wasn't here. They made it to the sidewalk. Victor collapsed against a wall, gasping. Lena looked back and saw 2 men emerge from the alley. Not cops, not FBI. Marcus's people. Professional. Efficient. Already raising their weapons. Lena pulled Victor's gun from the gym bag, the Glock he'd taken from the safe deposit box. She'd never fired a gun in her life, but she'd watched enough people die in Medellin to know which end pointed where. She aimed at the closest man and pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly knocked her over. The shot went wide, hitting nothing, but it made them dive for cover, which was all she needed. She fired twice more, wild, inaccurate, just buying seconds. Then she grabbed Victor and ran. The car was there, keys in her pocket. She threw Victor into the passenger seat, started the engine, and peeled out just as return fire shattered the back window. Glass everywhere. Victor hunched down. Lena drove like she was back in Colombia, running from paramilitaries, the muscle memory of survival kicking in. 3 blocks. 5. 10. Nobody following. She turned randomly, changed direction, made sure they were clear before slowing down. Victor was breathing hard, hands pressed to his chest like he was checking for bullet holes. Did they hit you? No, you? No, but that was close. He looked at her. Really looked at her. You just saved my life. Again. Yeah, well, it's becoming a habit. Lena's hands were shaking on the wheel, adrenaline crash hitting her all at once. We need to find somewhere safe. They know about Santos now. They'll be watching everywhere we might go. I know a place, Tommy's, in Jersey. He owes me. Tommy sold you out to Marcus at the bank. No, he let Marcus see me. There's a difference. Tommy's old school. He doesn't kill without reason. Lena wanted to argue, but she was too tired, too scared. She drove to Jersey in silence, watching the mirrors, waiting for Marcus's people to appear. They didn't. Tommy's place was a house in a quiet neighborhood where people minded their business. He answered the door with a gun in his hand, saw Victor, and cursed. You look worse than last time. Feel worse too. Victor stumbled inside. We need a place to stay, just for tonight. Tonight I can do. Longer than that, we need to talk terms. Tommy looked at Lena. You're the one who's been raising hell. That's me. Good. Someone needed to. Tommy locked the door behind them. Damon's scrambling. FBI's all over his finances. Word on the street is he's looking to make a deal. Flip on everyone to save himself. Let him, Victor said. Let them all turn on each other. That's what I want. What you want is to survive long enough to see it. Tommy pointed to the couch. Sleep. Both of you. I'll keep watch. Lena wanted to argue, to say she'd take first watch, but her body had other ideas. She collapsed onto the couch next to Victor, and sleep took her before she could fight it. She dreamed of Medellin, of running through streets while bullets flew, of being 12 years old and watching her world burn, of learning that survival meant being willing to do things other people wouldn't. When she woke, it was dark outside. Victor was still sleeping, his breathing steadier than it had been. Tommy was in the kitchen, making coffee. He's getting stronger, Tommy observed. Santos did good work. Not good enough. We had to run before the treatment finished. Yeah, I heard about that. Marcus's people hit the clinic an hour after you left, tore the place apart looking for evidence. Santos is in the wind. Lena's stomach dropped. Is he okay? Far as I know, but his clinic's done. Feds will be asking questions about why armed men shot up a medical facility. Tommy poured coffee. This is escalating fast. You two need to make a move before Damon does. What kind of move? The kind that ends this, one way or another. Tommy leaned against the counter. You've got evidence. You've got witnesses. You've turned half his organization against him. But until Damon's actually in cuffs, he's dangerous. Desperate people do stupid things. Like hiring hitmen to kill his brother? Like hiring hitmen to kill everyone who knows what he did. You think you're the only target? Morrison's in protective custody. Dr. Keene's disappeared. Anyone who can testify against Damon is getting visits from Marcus's people. Lena hadn't thought about that. She'd been so focused on taking Damon down, she hadn't considered the collateral damage. What do we do? You go public, all the way. No more anonymous tips, no more working through intermediaries. You get Victor in front of cameras, and you tell the world what they did. Victor's not strong enough, Beth. Victor's strong enough to talk, and that's all he needs to do. Tommy finished his coffee. Tomorrow morning, there's a press conference. Damon's announcing some bullshit about corporate restructuring. You show up, you crash it, you make him face what he did in front of everyone. It was risky, possibly suicidal. But Tommy was right. They couldn't keep running, couldn't keep hiding. Eventually Marcus would get lucky. Eventually Lena would make a mistake. Better to control the battlefield than let Damon choose it. Okay, Lena said. We crashed the press conference. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Victor woke at dawn feeling like he'd been hit by a truck, dragged for a mile, then hit again for good measure. But he was awake, alive. And today he was going to face the people who'd tried to kill him. "You look terrible," Lena said from the doorway. She'd been up for hours, he could tell, probably hadn't slept much at all. "Thanks. You look tired." "I am tired, but we don't get to be tired today." She handed him coffee. "Drink this. You need to be sharp." The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the Hale Enterprises building. Damon would be there, surrounded by lawyers and PR people, spinning a story about Victor's health and the company's bright future. The media would eat it up because they always did. Powerful man stepping aside for medical reasons. Younger brother nobly taking the reins. A story as old as time. Except Victor was about to ruin that story. Tommy drove them into Manhattan in a car borrowed from a friend of a friend. Untraceable, he said. Victor sat in the back trying to conserve energy. Lena was beside him, going through the evidence one more time. Photos, recordings, Alara's journal with her handwritten confession. Everything they needed to bury Damon and Alara both. "You sure you can do this?" Tommy asked, glancing at Victor in the rearview mirror. "You pass out up there. This whole thing falls apart." "I won't pass out." "You passed out 2 days ago." 2 days ago I was dying, now I'm just sick." Victor tried to sit up straighter, to look stronger than he felt. "I'll make it through." They parked 3 blocks from Hale Enterprises. Close enough to walk, far enough that Marcus's people wouldn't spot the car. The city was alive with morning rush hour, people heading to work, street vendors setting up, the usual chaos of Manhattan. None of them knew that in an hour, everything was about to explode. "Here's how this works," Lena said as they walked. "You go in through the main entrance. Head straight to the conference room. Don't stop, don't talk to anyone. I'll be right behind you. And if Marcus tries to stop us, then we make a scene. Lots of witnesses, lots of cameras. That's the whole point." She looked at Victor. "You ready for this?" Victor thought about the year he'd spent dying without knowing it, about the morning coffee that tasted fine but was killing him, about watching his wife and brother toast his death through a crack in a closet door, about everything he'd lost and everything he was about to take back. "Yeah," he said. "I'm ready." The lobby of Hale Enterprises was already filling with media. Camera crews, reporters with microphones, photographers jockeying for position. Security was tight. 3 guards at the entrance, more scattered throughout the lobby. Victor recognized most of them. People who'd worked for him for years. He walked in like he owned the place, because technically, he still did. The first guard who saw him actually dropped his clipboard. "Mr. Hale? But I thought we were told..." "You were told wrong." Victor kept walking. "I'm here for the press conference." "Sir, I need to call this in." "Go ahead, call it in. Tell Damon his brother's here." Lena stayed close, one hand in her bag where she'd stashed Victor's gun, just in case. Tommy had peeled off to watch the exits, make sure nobody tried to drag them out the back way. They made it halfway across the lobby before Marcus appeared. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, suit rumpled, eyes red. He saw Victor and stopped dead. "You need to leave," Marcus said quietly. "Right now." "I'm not leaving. I'm going to that press conference." "Victor, don't do this. Walk away. There's still time to make a deal." "I don't make deals with people who tried to kill me." Victor moved to step around him. Marcus blocked his path. "I can't let you go up there." "You gonna stop me? Here? In front of all these cameras?" Marcus looked around at the media, at the security guards watching, at the impossible situation Victor had just put him in. He could drag Victor out, but it would be on camera, would be news, would be exactly the scene Victor wanted. "This is a mistake," Marcus said. "Probably, but it's mine to make." Marcus stepped aside. He didn't have a choice. Victor and Lena took the elevator up to the executive floor. The same route Victor had taken 1,000 times. But everything felt different now. The walls seemed closer, the lights harsher. He was walking into enemy territory, and everyone knew it. The conference room was set up like a theater, podium at the front, rows of chairs for media, cameras already positioned. Damon was in the corner, talking to his lawyer, rehearsing whatever lies he was about to tell. He looked confident, composed, like a man who'd already won. Then he saw Victor. The color drained from Damon's face. For just a second, his mask slipped, and Victor saw real fear there. Then it was gone, replaced by forced calm. "Victor, what are you doing here?" "Thought I'd attend my own funeral, see what you had planned to say about me." Alara was there too, standing near the windows. She looked smaller than Victor remembered, fragile. When she saw him, her hand went to her throat like she was checking for a pulse. "You're supposed to be—" she started, then stopped. "Dead? Yeah, I know. Funny how that worked out." Victor moved to the front of the room. Media was filing in now, taking seats, setting up equipment. They sensed something was happening. Blood in the water. Damon's lawyer, expensive suit, practiced smile, stepped forward. "Mr. Hale, this is a scheduled press conference for company business. If you have concerns, we can address them privately." "I don't do private anymore. Not after what happened." Victor turned to face the cameras. "But I'm happy to wait. Let Damon say his piece first. Then I'll say mine." The lawyer looked at Damon, who was trying to calculate odds, trying to figure out if he could still control this. He couldn't. Everyone could see it. "Fine," Damon said. "Let's get this over with." The press conference started 10 minutes late. Damon stood at the podium, reading from prepared remarks about corporate transitions and Victor's health challenges. He was smooth, professional, almost believable. "My brother has dedicated his life to this company," Damon said, "but recent health issues have made it clear that he needs to focus on recovery. I'm honored to step into a leadership role during this transition, ensuring that Hale Enterprises continues to thrive." Reporters were taking notes. Cameras were recording. It was all going exactly as Damon had planned. Then Victor stood up. "That's an interesting story," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You want to tell them the interesting part? The part where you poisoned me?" The room went dead silent. Damon's smile froze. "Victor, you're not well. You're confused." "I'm not confused. I'm dying. There's a difference." Victor pulled out his phone, the one with the video from the closet. "And I have proof." He played the video on the room's projector. Everyone watched as Alara and Damon appeared on screen, toasting Victor's death, discussing the poison, planning the takeover. Every word crystal clear. Alara made a sound like a wounded animal. Damon just stood there, watching his life implode in real time. That's taken out of context," Damon tried. "That's not what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like you and my wife celebrating my murder." Victor felt strong now, righteous. The anger that had been building for weeks finally had somewhere to go. "Want to explain the context where that's okay?" Reporters were shouting questions. Cameras were everywhere. Damon's lawyer was trying to shut it down, saying they were done here, but nobody was listening. Lena stepped forward, pulling out Alara's journal. "We also have this. Mrs. Hale's personal diary, detailing the poisoning, dosage amounts, symptoms to watch for. Written in her own hand." She read a passage. Alara's words, condemning her from beyond any lawyer's ability to spin. Alara tried to run, actually turned and headed for the door. Two police officers who'd been standing in the back, arranged by Tommy, Victor realized, stepped forward to block her exit. "Mrs. Hale, we need you to come with us. We have questions about an ongoing investigation." It wasn't... Alara was crying now, mascara running, the composed society wife dissolving into panic. "Damon said it was the only way. Said Victor would destroy everything." "Shut up," Damon hissed. "Don't say another word." But Alara was past the point of listening, past the point of caring. "I didn't want to do it. I told you I didn't want to. But you kept pushing, kept saying we'd be together, kept promising it would all work out." "I said shut up." The room erupted, reporters rushing forward, camera flashes like lightning. The officers moving in to separate Damon and Alara, to take control of a situation spiraling into chaos. Victor watched it all from the podium. This was what he'd wanted, what he'd risked everything for. The truth exposed, his enemies destroyed, justice served. So why did he feel so empty? The arrests happened fast. Alara was taken into custody first, still crying, still trying to explain how this was all Damon's idea. Damon was next, silent now. His lawyer already on the phone arranging bail. They'd both be out within hours, but the damage was done. The story was out. The empire Victor had built was burning. Marcus appeared at Victor's side. You did it. You actually did it. Yeah, I did. Victor felt exhausted, sick. The adrenaline that had carried him through the press conference was fading, leaving just the reality of his failing body. What happens now? Now, federal prosecutors take over. They'll want your testimony, the evidence Lena collected, all of it. Marcus looked at the chaos around them. You just started a war, Vic. Hope you're ready for it. I've been ready my whole life. But that wasn't true. Victor wasn't ready, wasn't prepared for what came next, the lawyers, the trials, the media circus, the slow dismantling of everything he'd spent 20 years building. Lena found him an hour later, sitting in his old office, staring out at the city. The view that used to make him feel powerful now just made him feel tired. You okay? She asked. I don't know. Ask me in a year. In a year, you'll either be testifying in court or dead from organ failure, maybe both. She sat in the chair across from his desk, the same chair Damon had sat in, planning his takeover. What are you going to do? About what? About everything. The company, your life, what comes next. Victor hadn't thought that far ahead. He'd been so focused on surviving, on exposing the truth, that he hadn't considered what happened after. The company would be torn apart in investigations. His name would be dragged through the mud along with Damon's. Everything he'd built would be examined, and most of it wouldn't survive the scrutiny. I don't know, he admitted. For the first time in 20 years, I have no idea what I'm doing. Good. Maybe that means you'll do something different. Lena stood. I'm leaving. Going back to Rose's. Figure out what comes next for me. Stay. The word came out before Victor could stop it. Lena looked at him, surprised. Stay and do what? Clean up your mess? I already did that. Stay and help me figure out what comes next. You're good at this. Better than I am at seeing angles I miss. I was your maid, Victor, not your business partner. You were never just my maid. I was just too stupid to see it. He stood, moving around the desk. You saved my life, multiple times. You took down my brother when I couldn't. You did all of it without asking for anything. I did it because it was right, not because I wanted a job. I'm not offering you a job. I'm asking you to stay because... Victor stopped, tried to figure out how to say what he was feeling. Because you're the only person in 20 years who gave a damn whether I lived or died, and I don't want to lose that. Lena was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. You don't owe me anything, Victor. We're square. I know, but maybe I want to not be square. Maybe I want to actually know the person who saved my life. Learn her birthday. Find out what she likes besides cleaning up after terrible people. March 14th, and I like coffee. Real coffee. Not the expensive stuff you drink that tastes like dirt. Lena moved toward the door. But I'm still leaving. You need to figure out who you are without the Empire. And I need to figure out who I am without being invisible. She left. Victor didn't try to stop her. He just watched her go and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or if letting her go was the first smart thing he'd done in years. The trial started 3 months later. Damon and Alara were charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, and about 15 other crimes that Victor's lawyers explained in detail. The prosecution had everything: video evidence, journal entries, Dr. Keene's testimony about the therapy sessions where Alara had discussed the poisoning. It should have been open and shut, but Damon's lawyers were good. They argued that the video was taken illegally, that the journal was hearsay, that Dr. Keene's testimony violated privilege. They dragged it out, filed motion after motion, turned it into the kind of legal battle that could last years. Victor testified on day 43, walked into the courtroom on legs that still shook, took the stand, and told the truth. All of it. The poison, the sickness, the night he watched his wife and brother celebrate his death. Damon watched from the defense table. Alara sat beside him, but they weren't touching, weren't even looking at each other. The affair that had seemed so passionate in the penthouse had curdled into mutual resentment. Blame passed back and forth like a hot potato nobody wanted to hold. Mr. Halo, the prosecutor asked, did your brother and wife attempt to murder you? Yes. How do you know? Because I heard them say it, recorded them saying it, and because my doctor confirmed I was being poisoned with thallium for over a year. The defense attorney tried to shake his testimony, suggested Victor was confused, that his illness had affected his memory, that maybe the poison was self-administered, a cry for attention from a man losing his grip on power. Victor just pointed to the video. Watch it again. Tell me I'm confused. The trial lasted 3 months. In the end, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Damon got 25 years. Ilara got 15. Both would be eligible for parole, but that was a long time away. Long enough for Victor to rebuild. Or die. Whichever came first. He was leaving the courthouse when he saw her. Lena, standing across the street, watching. She'd been there every day of the trial, he realized. Always in the back. Always watching. Never approaching. Victor crossed the street, ignoring the reporters shouting questions. Stopped in front of her. You came, he said. I wanted to see how it ended. This isn't the end. Appeals, retrials. This could go on for years. But the important part's done. They're convicted. You're alive. Lena looked at him. Really looked at him. You look better. Healthier. Santos finished the treatment. Says I'll probably live another 20 years if I don't do anything stupid. Victor paused. Want to get coffee? The good kind, not the expensive dirt? Lena smiled. Actually smiled, not the polite nothing expression she'd worn for 5 years. Yeah, I could do coffee. They found a diner 2 blocks away. Same kind of place they'd been to a dozen times during the investigation. Red booths, bad lighting, coffee that was strong enough to wake the dead. What are you going to do now? Lena asked after they'd ordered. Honestly, I have no idea. The company's being investigated. Most of my assets are frozen. My lawyers say I'll be lucky if I keep 10% of what I built. Victor stirred sugar into his coffee. Turns out when you build an empire on criminal enterprise, you don't get to keep it when the crimes come to light. Shocking. Yeah, who knew? He looked at her. What about you? Rosa says you moved out, got your own place. Small apartment in Queens, nothing fancy, but it's mine. First place I've ever had that was actually mine. Lena sipped her coffee. I'm taking classes, business administration. Figured if I'm going to not be invisible, I should probably know how things actually work. You already know how things work. You took down my brother with $50,000 and a flash drive. That was different. That was survival. I want to know how to build something, not just tear things down. Victor understood that. He'd spent 20 years building, but what he'd built was rotten at the foundation. Built on fear and leverage and all the things that eventually collapsed. Can I ask you something? He said. Why'd you help me? Really? You said it's because nobody deserves to die that way, but there's more to it. Had to be. Lena was quiet for a moment. Then, when I was 12 in Medellin, the paramilitaries came to our neighborhood. They killed a lot of people, including my parents. I hid in a closet and watched through a crack in the door, just like you did. Victor's chest tightened. Lena, nobody helped us. Nobody saw. We were invisible to the people who could have stopped it, just like I was invisible to you. She met his eyes. So when I saw what was happening, when I realized nobody else was going to save you, I couldn't just watch. Not again. I'm sorry for what happened to you, for not seeing you. I know, and you're welcome, for saving your life. She finished her coffee. But we're even now. Whatever debt you think you owe me, it's paid. What if I don't want to be even? What if I want to actually know you? Why? So you can feel better about yourself? So you can prove you're not the same person who ignored me for 5 years? Maybe. Or maybe because you're the most interesting person I've met in 20 years and I was too stupid to notice. Victor leaned forward. I'm not asking you to work for me. I'm not asking you to save me again. I'm just asking for a chance to not be strangers. Lena studied him. You're serious? Completely. That's dangerous, Victor. Getting to know me. I'm not nice, I'm not easy, and I don't forgive things just because time passes. Good. I don't deserve nice or easy. He held out his hand. Friends? She looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she took it. Friends. But you're paying for coffee. You owe me 5 years of back wages. Deal. They talked for 2 hours. About everything and nothing. Lena told him about growing up in Colombia, about the journey to America that had nearly killed her, about the jobs she'd worked, the people she'd met, the life she'd built in the margins. Victor told her about his father, about inheriting an empire at 25 and having no idea what to do with it, about the choices he'd made that seemed smart at the time, but led him to a penthouse where his wife was poisoning his coffee. When they finally left, the sun was setting. Manhattan looked different in the golden light. Softer, less like a kingdom to conquer, and more like a place where people actually lived. Same time next week? Victor asked. Maybe, if I'm not busy. Busy with what? Classes, life, things that don't involve you. But Lena was smiling when she said it. I'll call you. She did call. 2 days later, then again the week after. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into walks through neighborhoods Victor had owned pieces of but never actually explored. Slowly, carefully, they built something that looked like friendship. 6 months after the trial, Victor's assets were liquidated. Most of it went to restitution. To the people he'd hurt over 20 years of doing business the wrong way. He was left with enough to live on. Not rich, not powerful, just enough. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. He sold the penthouse, couldn't stand being there anymore, couldn't sleep in the room where he'd almost died. Bought a smaller place in Brooklyn. 2 bedrooms. No view, no marble, no pretense. Lena helped him move in, laughed at his attempt to assemble furniture, taught him how to use a mop properly since he had never actually cleaned anything in his life. You're terrible at this, she said, watching him try to vacuum. I'm learning. Give me time. How much time? Because at this rate, your apartment's going to be filthy for years. Then I guess you'll have to come by and judge me regularly. She threw a pillow at him. He threw it back. And for just a moment, Victor felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Happy. A year after the trial, Damon filed an appeal. It was denied. Alara filed for divorce from prison. Damon didn't contest it. The empire that had seemed so important, so worth killing for, dissolved into legal fees and bitter recriminations. Victor didn't care. He was too busy learning how to live a life that wasn't built on fear. He got a job. Not a CEO position, nothing prestigious, just consulting work for small businesses that needed help with logistics. It paid enough. More importantly, it gave him something to do that didn't involve hurting people. Lena graduated from her business program, started her own company, cleaning services but done right. Fair wages, legal workers, no exploitation. It was small, but it was growing. They had dinner to celebrate. Victor brought wine. Lena brought stories about her worst clients and her best employees. I'm proud of you, Victor said. For what? Starting a cleaning company? You used to run half of Manhattan. For building something real, something that won't collapse the moment someone looks too closely. He raised his glass. To honest work. To honest work, well, Lena clinked her glass against his. And to second chances, even for people who don't deserve them. Do I deserve one? I don't know. Ask me in another year. But she was smiling when she said it. And when Victor walked her home that night, she didn't pull away when he took her hand. It wasn't love. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was something. Something built on truth instead of lies, on respect instead of invisibility. And for Victor Hale, who'd spent his whole life building empires that crumbled, it was enough. 2 years after the poisoning, Victor got a call from Santos. The doctor had relocated to Arizona, started practicing again under a new license. He wanted to check in, see how his former patient was doing. I'm alive, Victor said. That's more than I expected. Your kidney function? Stable. My new doctor says I'm doing better than expected. Might actually make it to old age. Good. That's good. Santos paused. You're happy? With how things turned out? Victor looked around his apartment, at the furniture he'd assembled himself, at the photos on the wall, him and Lena at her graduation, him and Tommy at a Yankees game, him alone but smiling at the Brooklyn Bridge. A life that was smaller, but somehow bigger than anything he'd had before. Yeah, he said. I think I am. Then I did my job. Stay healthy, Victor. Victor hung up and went back to the report he was writing for a client. Small business expansion. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would change the world. But it was honest. And after everything, that mattered more than he'd ever imagined. 3 years after the trial, Victor got an invitation. Rosa was throwing a party for Lena's birthday. March 14th. The birthday he'd never known about for 5 years. He showed up with flowers and a gift. Found Lena surrounded by friends he'd never met. People from her classes, employees from her company. A life she'd built that had nothing to do with him. "You came," she said when she saw him. "Course I came. It's your birthday. First one you've ever attended. Won't be the last." He handed her the gift. "Open it later. It's stupid." She opened it immediately. Inside was a key. She looked at him confused. "It's to my apartment," Victor explained. "Not because I'm asking you to move in. Just because you're always welcome, anytime. You don't have to knock." Lena stared at the key. At this man who'd been her employer, her burden, her friend, who'd gone from ignoring her existence to trusting her with his life. "This is stupid," she said. "I know. I'm keeping it anyway." "Good." The party went late. Victor stayed until the end, helping clean up, washing dishes alongside people who had no idea who he used to be. They just knew him as Lena's friend, the quiet guy who'd been sick but was getting better, the one who made bad jokes and couldn't dance but tried anyway. When everyone had left, Lena found him on the fire escape, looking out at the city. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About how 3 years ago I was dying in a penthouse, surrounded by people who wanted me dead. And now I'm here, alive, at a birthday party for someone I used to think was invisible." Victor turned to look at her. "Funny how things work out." "Funny's one word for it." Lena sat beside him. "You ever regret it? Exposing Damon, losing everything." "Sometimes. Late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder what would have happened if I'd just taken his deal, retired somewhere warm, lived out my time in peace." "Why didn't you?" "Because peace built on lies isn't really peace. It's just slower dying." Victor looked at the key in Lena's hand. "This. Right now. This is peace. And I didn't have to kill anyone to get it." Lena laughed. Actually laughed, the sound carrying across the rooftop. "Bar's pretty low there, Vic." "Yeah, well, I'm working on it." They sat there as the city moved around them. Two people who'd survived things they shouldn't have, who'd found each other in the worst possible way and somehow made it mean something. Victor didn't know what came next. Didn't know if he and Lena would stay friends or become something more. Didn't know if his health would hold or if the poison would catch up with him eventually. But for the first time in his life, he was okay with not knowing, okay with letting things unfold without controlling every variable. He was alive. He was free. And the woman sitting beside him knew his birthday. It was enough. 5 years after the poisoning, Victor stood in a courtroom again. But this time he wasn't the victim. He was the witness. Damon's parole hearing. The lawyer said he didn't have a chance. 25 years meant 25 years. But Damon was trying anyway because that's what Damon did. He fought until there was nothing left to fight with. Victor could have stayed home. Could have let the prosecutors handle it. But he needed to see his brother one more time. Needed to close this chapter for real. Damon looked older. Gray hair, lines around his eyes. Prison had weathered him in ways Victor recognized. They were both survivors of things that should have killed them. When their eyes met across the courtroom, Victor saw something there. Not hatred, not even anger, just exhaustion. The hearing went exactly as expected. Parole denied. Damon would serve at least another 10 years, maybe more. Afterward, Victor was allowed 5 minutes. One final conversation through bulletproof glass. "You came," Damon said. His voice was rough, older. "Yeah, thought I should." "To gloat?" "No, to say goodbye." Victor picked up the phone. "I'm done being angry, done letting what you did define my life, so this is it. Last time I'm thinking about you." Damon was quiet for a moment, then, "Did you ever love her?" "Elara." "I thought I did, but I don't think I knew what love was back then." "Do you know now?" Victor thought about Lena, about the way she'd taken his hand at her birthday party, about the key he'd given her and how she'd used it twice in the past month, showing up with coffee and company when he'd been alone too long. "I'm learning," he said. "Good. That's good. Damon looked at his hands, at the orange jumpsuit, at the life he'd traded for a penthouse and a woman who'd divorced him the moment things got hard. I'm sorry, for what it's worth. I'm sorry. I know, but sorry doesn't fix it. No, it doesn't. They sat in silence for a moment, two brothers who'd destroyed each other, chasing things that didn't matter. Goodbye, Damon. Goodbye, Vic. Victor hung up the phone and walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. Outside, Lena was waiting. She'd driven him to the hearing, said she'd wait as long as it took. How'd it go? She asked. It's done. Really done. Victor felt lighter somehow, like he'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. Want to get out of here? Where to? Anywhere? Nowhere. Doesn't matter. They drove with no destination. Ended up at a beach in New Jersey, sat on the sand watching the ocean and eating food from a boardwalk vendor. You know what I realized, Victor said? I spent 20 years building an empire, and the best thing I ever did was lose it. That's depressing. No, it's freeing. All that power, all that control. It wasn't making me happy. It was just making me paranoid. He looked at Lena. This makes me happy, right here. Eating mediocre hot dogs on a cold beach? Being with someone who sees me, really sees me. Not what I can do for them, not what I'm worth. Just me. Lena was quiet. Then she reached over and took his hand. You know I'm still angry with you sometimes, right? For those 5 years? I know. And I'm probably always going to be a little angry about it. I know that too. Good. Long as we're clear. She squeezed his hand. But I'm glad you're alive, glad you're here, even if you're still terrible at vacuuming. Victor laughed, actually laughed, the sound carrying across the beach. I'll work on it. You better, because I'm not cleaning your apartment for you. Wouldn't dream of asking. They sat there until the sun set, until the beach emptied out, until it was just them and the ocean and the future stretching out uncertain and terrifying and beautiful. Victor Hale had been a king, had built an empire, had been feared and respected and ultimately betrayed. But sitting on that beach, holding hands with a woman who'd saved his life and then taught him how to live it, he realized something. He'd never been more powerful than he was right now. Because power wasn't about control. It wasn't about fear or leverage or making people bend to your will. It was about choosing what mattered, about building something real with someone who saw you at your worst and stuck around anyway. It was about second chances and honest work and learning to vacuum properly. It was about being alive, really alive, for the first time in years. And as Victor sat there watching the waves roll in, watching Lena smile at something on her phone, watching his future unfold in ways he couldn't predict or control, he felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Peace. Not the kind built on lies or fear or power, just peace. And it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.